with decisive victory, there is a possibility to decide it's no longer in their interest to continue down this path. We should change direction. And I think for that to happen here in Gaza, we definitely need Hamas removed. We have to help facilitate who is the new governing entity going to be. We're going to take a Palestinian, put him on an Israeli tank, and drive him into Gaza and install him in the Muqata, in the Palestinian headquarters in Gaza City. That's really going to go really well. Remember what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq after the U.S. tried to do that? That never works out well.
But I think we both know that the Emiratis are not coming in unless invited by an authentic and legitimate Palestinian entity. And if Netanyahu says that it's not the Palestinian Authority and it's not the PLO, then there is nobody else to invite the Emiratis, and they're not coming in.
The Palestinian Authority is very flawed. It needs to be dramatically reformed.
It's the one issue that everybody agrees upon.
Everyone agrees on that, but Israel's not even engaging in that conversation. We had an opportunity and we missed it. You know this, Giddy. Israel is good at missing opportunities. We also have to constantly look for where do we have the opportunity to take the advantage of our military gains and accomplishments.
The radicalization of Gaza under Hamas since 2007 ended in a monumental disaster. On October 7, some 1,200 Israelis were killed, 253 were taken hostage to Gaza, and many communities destroyed. Ever since, most of Gaza was destroyed to the ground, and most of its population displaced. On August 13, 2025, I hosted Yaakov Katz, a renowned columnist and former chief editor of the Jerusalem Post, for a conversation on the Israel-Hamas negotiations in Cairo to end the war, which will allow for freeing all Israeli hostages. One key point that Yaakov made concerned the need to de-radicalize not only Gaza, but also the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. He invoked the often made comparison to the de-radicalization of Germany following World War II. But the two cases are very different. Comparing and contrasting them may require hours and be the subject of many PhDs and books. You can listen to the entire 45-minute conversation between Yaakov and me on my Insights podcast. Here is the section on the challenge of de-radicalization. But I do want to ask you something else. You are always repeatedly speaking about the challenge of de-radicalization, and you're often invoking the comparison to Germany and Japan. So perhaps you should say a few words about that, and then we'll dive deeper.
Look, obviously very different circumstances. One came after a world war.
But a lot of time, these comparisons are being invoked. So I think it's important to speak about them and to highlight it, contrast and compare.
I totally agree with you. I think there's a lot of differences, but there's also room to make a comparison. The differences are very clear, right? Germany and Japan faced a decisive victory and defeat, right? On the one hand. On the other hand, they also were countries, were organized states. And we can't ignore the fact that in Japan in particular, there was an emperor who decided to embark on a whole new path. In Germany, we saw the continued occupation by the Allied forces of that country, right? So it's not all comparable. However, I think what we can take away from there is that with decisive victory, if achieved and if obtained, there is a possibility to bring that country or that people to decide it's no longer in their interest to continue down this path. We should change direction. And I think for that to happen here in Gaza, we definitely need Hamas removed. We need Hamas degraded. We need Hamas removed as the entity in charge of Gaza. We have to help facilitate who is the new governing entity going to be. And we have to show that there is a reward down the line, that there is a new reality that is possible. We're not showing that right now. So what's the incentive? What we're telling the people of Gaza right now is we are going to occupy you indefinitely. We're going to take over more parts of Gaza. We're not going to let you flourish. We're not going to let the Palestinian Authority into Gaza. We're not even talking about what we're going to let happen in Gaza. We talk about just these slogans. But I think combining these two together creates the horizon for political future, gives them the idea that there is a better reality over the horizon, and we have a model of how that could potentially take place.
All right, so this you've touched on so many important points, so let's break them down. First of all, the economics, right? The Americans, before the end of the war, declared the Marshall Plan. And that Marshall Plan actually speaks about the reconstruction of Germany and Japan and all of Europe with American funding, with American leadership, which is one component. Second, there was a regime change. The Nazis were removed, Adenauer was brought in, and Adenauer was a person that eventually not just made peace with the Americans, but also with the French. And his relationship with France became the cornerstone of the European Union. So we're seeing themes here, and that is, yes, we need to remove Hamas, but there has to be regime change. And that regime change has to be with an authentic Palestinian leadership. It cannot be someone that is being parachuted, some sort of an entity that is seen as an Israeli agent. There has to be an economic vision. So the economic side and the political side have to come together. And it is not for the Americans to de-radicalize Germany. It was for the Germans to de-radicalize Germany. So I think all of these principles are principles that we could take away. And of course, we need to de-radicalize the Palestinian system in order to have peace at any point in the future. So I think that this comparison is invoked a lot, and contrasting and comparing the situations is extremely important, like you just did.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Giddy. What you pulled out, those three pieces are so important. Like we hear, for example, the prime minister on Friday, the security cabinet this past Friday made their decision about taking control of Gaza City, and outlined what are the criteria or how this war can end. It can end, of course, with the hostages back. It ends with Hamas removed. And the prime minister finally, for the first time, spoke about what will be the future entity governing Gaza. And he said it will be Arab, but it won't be the Palestinian Authority, and it won't be Hamas. So what Palestinian is it going to be? You think the people of Gaza want the Emiratis controlling their lives? They want the Egyptians controlling their lives? They want some Omani guy coming in? It has to be a Palestinian. So who is that Palestinian? We're going to take a Palestinian, put him on an Israeli tank, and drive him into Gaza and install him in the Muqata, in the Palestinian headquarters in Gaza City. That's really going to go really well, right? I mean, remember what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq after the U.S. tried to do that? That never works out well. Never.
Just before you continue, because again, your answers touch on so many issues, let's break them down. First of all, I want to speak about the regional component, about this vision that the UAE comes in and backed by Arab resources and Arab armies. And you've led MEAD, which is really an incredible conference. Again, shout out to all that work. But I think we both know that the Emiratis are not coming in unless invited by an authentic and legitimate Palestinian entity. And if Netanyahu says that it's not the Palestinian Authority and it's not the PLO, then there is nobody else to invite the Emiratis, and they're not coming in. And second, the Emiratis want to know that there will be security arrangements that will prevent a horrible scenario in which Israeli soldiers shoot at Emirati soldiers, right? So Israel cannot be in security control of Gaza while introducing an Arab-led security force. So all of these positions are like in dramatic contrast. So within that, do you even see the probability of an Arab force coming in when this condition of no Hamas and no Palestinian Authority is in place?
I don't see it happening, and I can tell you what I hear from the Arabs themselves. I hear from the Emiratis. I've heard it from Jordanians. I've heard it from Egyptians. I've heard it from the Saudis. They're not coming if this is going to be seen as something that is just a puppet of Israel, if it's seen as something that doesn't have real legs to stand on and the real viability to be able to govern Gaza. And for that to happen, it has to be authentic. For it to be authentic, it has to have a Palestinian DNA and characteristics to it. It can't be UAE, Saudi, Egyptian government. It has to be Palestinian. And I mean, so this is also, the Palestinian Authority is very flawed. We all know that, right? It needs to be dramatically reformed or revitalized, whatever language.
It's the one issue that everybody agrees upon.
Everyone agrees on that, right? And that needs to happen. But Israel's not even engaging in that conversation, right? I mean, imagine what could have happened over the last 2 years, potentially. Israel could have potentially doubled down and said, listen, I see Hamas in Gaza. I see the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Ultimately, two versions of Palestinian leadership. One embraces death, terrorism, murder, rape, the most barbaric, horrific terrorist attacks. And one is not good, but they're against terrorism.
And against Iran. And against Iran.
And against
Consistently against Iran.
Right. Don't you want to say, okay, maybe you could be my partner. You're a flawed partner, but we can try to work together. Let's take now advantage of this new opportunity and help reshape what you can become and what you are. And maybe it's not Abu Mazen, it's somebody new, it's somebody different, it's new leadership, whatever it is. But we had an opportunity and we missed it. And I think that is such a, listen, you know this, Giddy. I don't have to tell you this, but maybe our listeners don't know it. Israel is great. I say that sarcastically. Israel is, unfortunately, is good at missing opportunities, right? I think that this was a missed opportunity. I think that what's happening now with Syria has the potential to be a missed opportunity. What's happening with Lebanon has the potential to be a missed opportunity. We obviously need to be vigilant, but we also have to constantly look for where do we have the opportunity to take the advantage of our military gains and accomplishments. And you mentioned some of them: Iran, Lebanon, Hezbollah, the toppling of Assad, which was the catalyst for it is obviously Israel's war here. What's happening in Gaza is no less different than that. And these are opportunities. Netanyahu knew how to take advantage of the opportunity with Iran and to launch that attack that was successful and then bring Donald Trump into it. That was an amazing description of taking advantage of an opportunity. Let's do the same here in Gaza right now.
There is broad consensus that any path to peace between Israel and the Palestinians will require de-radicalization of the Palestinian population in Gaza and in the West Bank. This is an amorphous goal, which is elusive to achieve and deserves its own entire episode. Perhaps even more than one. Right now, as we record this episode, negotiations are taking place in Cairo to end the Israel-Hamas war. But a true end to the conflict will require some political understandings on how to de-radicalize. We can't begin that conversation too soon. Thank you for listening.